Hey guys, my name is Mysca and welcome to Overwatch Central. We're taking a look at the patch that happened on a Tuesday and how it has affected a bunch of hero pick rates, win rates, all that stuff. Basically just what the meta has seen in terms of changes throughout this week so far. We got a few days to work with and we also got Ryan here.
Hello, hello.
So we'll be going through all the different characters that are kind of the main highlights of the patch. If we're not mentioning the characters here, then expect them to not have moved too much. You can always check the pick rates yourself on overbuff.com. Let's begin. Sigma is first out because obviously it was like a key character in the double barrier meta that I would still say kind of exists, but Sigma's pick rate is collapsing. It's dropped quite a bit in general overall. It's dropped from about just over 7% down to about 4.3, 4.2 throughout this week. So that's a pretty hefty, roughly 40% decrease in play. And yeah, it's a pretty big deal since it was such a sort of staple character to this whole thing. And yeah, I'm not quite sure if there's a big replacement for him or not.
Well, I mean, especially when you had a lot of the pros saying, yeah, this patch isn't going to make a difference with Orisa Sigma being really strong. But even in like the higher tiers of like Grandmaster, Master, there is a difference. Maybe it's just that people don't necessarily want to play him. Personally, if I had to pick between Sigma and Roadhog, I'd want to pick Roadhog, and I think that's pretty much what's going to happen as we go on later into the video. So I'm kind of sad for him, but he was very much overtuned. You played him a little bit and you did a comparison between old Sigma and new Sigma.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that 1 second shield, like, cooldown the difference?
I mean, honestly, like, that's the thing, because I actually thought back and looked back at that video this morning, and I was kind of like, oh, maybe I would be a bit wrong in my prediction, because I would be a bit too harsh on, like, how much of an impact this would have. But honestly, I feel like I was pretty spot on looking back at the video, and like you said, we'll get to that a little bit later. You can also see in specific tiers, you can see Sigma dropping even more in certain spots at least. So it's that sort of thing where, like, take Masters this month on PC, if you look at that on Overbuff, you can see it dropping from above 11% down to like just below 5% even in some cases. It's kind of nuts. It's a lot. Anyway, moving on, let's go to the next character.
Doomfist is another one that we wanted to highlight. He had some pretty hefty nerfs on. A lot of people, including Chipser, of course, were like, he doesn't deserve to be nerfed because he's more a sort of side effect of the problem as opposed to the problem himself. With that said, Doomfist was always pretty strong, and his pick rate has dropped down a little bit, enough that I think it sort of matters, and this is across the tier. Grandmaster as well, I think, is where you see the biggest sort of dip out of everyone, but as you've seen on screen, he on average is a moderate drop. Not enough that Doomfist is completely unplayable, but he is really strong because Orisa is really strong, and he doesn't need to worry about barriers, right? So with Sigma being played less, Doomfist might be played less because of that, but Doomfist is still pretty decent, right?
Yeah, like the few games I played today, for example, I still saw him a lot, and I feel like he's one of those characters that if you're better than your current skill level as Doomfist, you're going to be very noticeable in those games. It's not going to be one of those characters that you have to put in like loads and loads of effort to even climb a little bit. Like if you are really, really good at the character, you're still going to be very useful, like in most ranks, in most games. So yeah, I think he's still good. Just, you know, going from being more of a staple meta type of pick to more like a good DPS pick if you're comfortable on the character, that sort of thing.
I'd say it was pretty much expected this, really. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Not too dramatic, but obviously there was going to be a dip. But this is where we get into the territory of heroes that we weren't really sure how they would go. We assumed that Sigma would drop in pick rate. We assumed that Doomfist would. Nobody really expected Sigma to drop that much, but the likes of Winston, Deva, Tracers will go over. This is where it gets very interesting, I find.
Yeah, like it's kind of the second part of the discussion. The first one was kind of, will double barriers survive? And the second one was, what will happen with dive? And in terms of that, I mean, we kind of got the bad news that we were all expecting, that dive has not really increased in popularity because it's just not really enough. Like, I even looked at the Winston buff when that was happening. I didn't really feel like that was very good. A lot of people looked at the Deva buff and said that that wasn't that strong or solid of a buff either. And I mean, the pick rates kind of agree here, as Winston has only increased from, well, low 1% to just nearly 2% in some cases. Yeah, there are people that want to try and play him a bit more, but it's just not happening really. Like, there are attempts, and I think the pick rates are just like, yeah, very minimal changes, and win rates are not really helping him there either. So yeah, not a lot of change there for the character, unfortunately.
I remember talking to Evil Toaster a bit in recent videos, and you know he's having a lot of fun this week with a lot of people. But he was one that sort of like the idea of just, you know, you can play these characters. They're not as bad as people make them out to be. A lot of people complaining about having to be meta at the moment in order to play it, otherwise you're throwing. Do you feel as like a Winston Reinhardt player that these heroes are good enough to play, and it's just a case of attitude that people need to get over the fact that Orisa is really good? They can also play Winston and Reinhardt if they want to.
So when I was playing this morning, I played quite a bit of Orisa Hog every single game, and it just feels so strong even into Rein Zarya, you know, where you can shield a little bit more, I guess, I'm not sure, adaptively, if that makes sense. Like, you can be a bit more dynamic in how you defend against hooks and that stuff, right? Like, as Orisa, if you don't have Fortify, you can just get pulled up and hooked, and there's not much you can do about it. But with Reinhardt, you can just hold up that shield. With Zarya, you can bubble someone else or yourself, so you got a lot to work with. But still, Roadhog and Orisa felt strong against that. And same thing into Sigma, and I mean, I didn't even play against a Winston, because honestly, they're rare enough, especially at that rank. And yeah, like, I just feel like Roadhog Orisa are actually just very, very good now. And yeah, attitude or not, maybe if you're very good at Reinhardt and you have a team that can coordinate and just rush through those shields, or at least the Orisa barrier there. But yeah, I don't know, like, Orisa Hog just seems to be the way to go nowadays.
That really ties in nicely to the next hero, because we spoke about Winston. I wanted to sort of mention Deva real quick. And Deva's pick rate, much like Winston's, has gone up a little bit, but not an awful lot. Ironically, she's one of the sort of weaker tanks at the moment, considering that, you know, people are saying so long as she has defense matrix, she's always going to be meta. We're kind of seeing that's not really the case. However, like you've sort of mentioned, and I don't want to steal your thunder because we're talking about Roadhog next, if Roadhog goes up to a position where he's really popular again, even starts being used in the pro scene over Sigma, we will start seeing Deva again, because we saw a lot of pro teams using Roadhog Orisa very aggressively, but if they wanted to, say, defend Hanamura or just be a more conservative side, they would run Orisa Deva instead. So, just because of the defense matrix, eating whole hooks. So, if Roadhog does become more popular, I think Deva will as well. But we've seen right now that the impact isn't major. It's more, if this positive correlation for Roadhog keeps going, the same will happen to Deva, no doubt.
Yeah, like, if you look at the Deva pick rate, it's kind of like the Winston situation where it's barely bumped up. There's definitely gonna be that case where people want to actually try playing the character, but I feel like the worst thing we're seeing here, especially if you look at overall pick rate, win rate stuff, is that the pick rate goes up a tiny bit from about 1.3 to like 1.6 or 7, and the win rate actually goes down. And at that point, I feel like it's pretty obvious that this Deva buff was just not enough to make the character really, really good again. But like I said, it's going to be one of those, like we said with Dive in the previous patch, or well, rather than when looking at the PTR patch, that you'll need to just put so much more energy towards it to actually earn anything back from it. And because of that, even with Deva into something like Roadhog here, you're gonna struggle a lot, because you're gonna have to play crazy well to make up for the fact that Orisa and Hog is just super strong right now. And yeah, speaking of Hog, let's look at that, because yeah, these pick rates are pretty nuts. To begin with, overall, there's definitely a bump, and I think you'll notice that in your games that people are just more willing to pick up Roadhog. I noticed that today, and just overall I've seen more Roadhog players come out of the woodworks and just like all of a sudden want to actually play the character again, because when you're just getting thrown around like a meatball, kind of like Reinhardt in previous patches, there's not a lot of fun you can have with the character. But now, when you can actually fight Sigma pretty well, you can hook him through the suck ability, the kinetic grasp, and yeah, you're just not as vulnerable really anymore, and you can spam the barrier better because it's out more. It's clear that Roadhog is just on the rise once again, so it's pretty good to see.
Good balance between the off tanks, I feel, at this point, because Zarya isn't worth mentioning. There's a lot of heroes that we aren't going to go over, all like 31 of them or 32, whichever, how many, I've lost count, but these are the sort of main ones that we wanted to highlight in regards to off tanks. I think they're all in a pretty good spot other than Deva, so you have a lot of selection, and you don't just need to play Orisa Sigma, not that anybody really does that in the lower tiers anyway, so I think the tank spot is starting to open up a bit more with what you could play. Roadhog is kind of like the Ana for how Ana is for supports, I suppose, in a case that she can be really good, but she's also very fun to play. So people enjoy playing Ana, people enjoy playing Roadhog, myself included, so I'm certainly going to lock him in a bit more than I used to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually. That's a pretty good comparison. Because Roadhog is the sort of character that even when he's not popular, people still want to play him here and there. Because the hook is really fun to use, especially when you land those super rare, like crazy long-range hooks. And, well, you can definitely see that people are enjoying the characters in, like, Masters. We're going to bring that up so you guys can see. This gain is pretty nuts. And it goes from about mid to 2.5% roughly, all the way up to 7.4 in the latest day is what we have sampled here on Overbuff. And like, that's crazy. Like, those sort of gains in just, well, less than a week actually is just, I mean, unheard of, really. We haven't seen that in a very long time, and I'm happy to see it. I just enjoy playing with Roadhogs when I'm playing Orisa, because I play a lot of that character. It means that you can communicate more. Both people want to communicate more, and by doing that you just kind of have more fun. Yeah, I mean, do you reckon this will like last, or do you reckon that this is applicable to everyone, or is it more of like a, you know, only for the hog mains?
It's a competitive thing. I think, like I said, people enjoy playing Roadhog, so if they say, oh yeah, Roadhog's popular again, they'll start locking him in a bit more. Yeah. It's kind of the case of, if they had that with Orisa, we'd be in a really good spot, but because Orisa is so much more potent than Reinhardt and Winston, she's always going to be more popular than the two of them, unless some changes come in. And you know, Roadhog is just playable. Like, there are some compositions like Roadhog Zarya that may be not very good, but so long as you are good on those heroes, it doesn't really matter. It's only when you get to like GM and stuff where you might need to start falling in line with what's meta. Otherwise, insta-lock Roadhog. Honestly, at this point, I never thought we'd say that as YouTubers, be like, yeah, just insta-lock your favorite hero and don't worry about it, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say though, actually, one thing with Roadhog is that I feel like in terms of playing him in, I don't know, like gold and platinum, those sort of ranks, I have had a lot of success playing Roadhog there in previous years, just because I feel like that flanking mentality is kind of similar to, I don't want to say playing far on console necessarily, but you know that thing where some people just have issues dealing with certain types of flanks or certain types of positioning, and Roadhog is one of those characters that if you find good flanks and you find those opening hooks, you can blast through an entire SR tier, especially plat. Like, I've done that with Roadhog myself multiple times, and it's really fun. So yeah, pick up the character. I love playing this guy, so yeah, it's gonna be good.
You got options now, which is probably the most important thing for tanks. But for DPS, these final three, we can go over one DPS, two supports fairly quickly because it's fairly standard.
Yes.
Tracer's pick rate has gone up. She had a drop-off range increase. It feels great. She feels very lethal again. And whilst it doesn't really look much on like a sort of this week, if you look at the last 6 months, this is the best place that she's been in over half a year, which I think is...
take a look at Diamond as well. That's pretty nuts. Like, if you take a look at Diamond just for this past few days, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, I'm impressed by it. Like, again, like, it's kind of weird though, because dive is not a thing, but Tracer kind of is.
I mean, people like play Tracer, much like we've said with Roadhog and Ana, that I feel like even if you are playing some form of bunker, just having a Tracer in the backline is effective. So I think this is one that you're going to have to keep your eye on over 30 days to see what it's really like. But over the last week, it's been pretty decent, I'd say. Like, it's been better than expected for Tracer players. It enables you to pick her up more if you wanted to, because things like Genji, Widowmaker, Hanzo, and necessarily that meta right now, but you can still play them and pop off and win matches on them. Tracer has now entered into that tier 2, I feel. But the supports is also where I think a few changes have come in, not anything as dramatic as Roadhog or Sigma, but still worth noting for Ana and Baptiste, right?
Yeah, for Ana, I just wanted to highlight this because I thought it was almost a little bit weird, I guess. Like, Ana wasn't actually changed this patch directly herself in any sort of major way that you would normally see bring pick rates up or anything along those lines. We saw other characters that had changes that actually got, you know, pick rate boosts of similar kinds to Ana's here. As you can see, it does tick up a little bit, nothing too ridiculous overall and in certain tiers, but yeah, like we've said so many times now, Ana's just fun to play, and as soon as there's some characters that just work well with Ana, then I think people just want to play her more. In this case, in this patch, honestly, I feel like Ana is just a good character to have from a purely like utility perspective. It's just very useful to have also against like a Roadhog, for example, like throwing that anti-nade in there. That was just huge, obviously. And I mean, other than that, I don't really see why she's had this type of pick rate boost. At least it's, yeah, it's kind of it's a little bit weird.
There is a direct correlation over to Baptiste though, where it looks like whatever Ana gained in pick rate, Baptiste did lose. And Baptiste did get a bit of a nerf to his immortality field with the health that it has, so wasn't enough to really maybe scare Baptiste players. You can still play him, but he has dropped a chunk of pick rate. Not too much, but a noticeable amount.
Yeah.
And I feel like mixing between Ana and Baptiste is good, so long as you know when is good and when isn't. Baptiste is just really good at being able to play the shield breaking style. If they only have an Orisa or something, Baptiste is really good because you can put a lot of pressure onto that shield. When it's Orisa Sigma and there's too much shield to deal with, that's kind of where you start to see the Moira come in a little bit. So Baptiste, pay attention to what the enemies are running, can be a game-winning pick on his own if you pick him in the right situations. Otherwise, Ana's great, Baptiste is great, Moira's great. The support tier as a whole, really competitive and really fun, barring Brigitte, but I have seen a few Platinum Brigitte players just running in and killing everyone. Like, they get away with scot-free. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I actually had that in a game earlier today as well, just a Brig doing a lot of work, so I'm not sure, it seems like just a bit of a niche character in that way, but either way, if you want...
Another topic for another day, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot to get into. To wrap it up just real quick, I don't really like to do just a flat out summary because honestly there's so much nuance, especially in this patch with pick rate gains and losses. But overall, Sigma, Doomfist, Deva especially have lost out a bit this patch. Winston too, but it was already, you know, kind of... well, as expected. Deva is more not gained as much as I think a lot of people were hoping, but the characters that have really stood out is of course Roadhog. I would say in terms of the tank combo, Orisa Hog and compositions around that is what you want to be looking at. And apart from that, honestly, support here still looking pretty good overall, like nothing too crazy there, and DPS is also fairly balanced out, so I quite like where we're going with this patch overall, but we are also back to Orisa Hog. So
yeah, this patch was more impactful than people maybe gave it credit for. It could be more, but I think this is a nice patch to put in before BlizzCon to really test the waters. We could get a new hero, we could get an absolutely new game at this point with some of the stuff that's been said, so
yeah.
I think this was a safe bet from Blizzard, and I understand why they maybe did go crazy with like Orisa nerfs. See if there's more needed, but I'm quite happy with how this is going so far personally.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, that's everything. I hope you guys enjoyed our sort of patch discussion and rundown of stats. We try to be fairly organized with this, but we always go on for ages. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.